Hello, everyone. Welcome into today's webinar, Proactive Time Management, Solving Tomorrow's Problems Today, presented by the Head of Leadership Growth here at Educate 360, Dr. Jay Pugh. My name is Mariela, and I'll be assisting in moderating today's session. We are in Zoom for today's webinar, and we will be emailing you a copy of the recording after the session. We do encourage participation throughout the session, so please use the chat or that Q&A option for our short Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 is so excited to present this webinar today. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Dr. J.
Hey, thank you, Mariella. I appreciate it as always. And welcome to those that are joining. Great to see you all. Um, just before we dive in, as Mariella mentioned, this course kind of focuses around our topic of prioritizing your time effectively. As we're getting faster paced, being able to strategically focus on our time and being able to make the most of it becomes a really important piece. And what also kind of falls underneath of it is how can we use that time to be able to help get underneath to help maybe achieve a little bit of that work-life balance that we're trying to look for so much. So as we dive in, we're going to kick off today's session. Now, for those that have been in sessions with me before, and just a quick thumbs up, whether it's in the reactions or if you've been in a session with me already, give me a thumbs up if you've been with me before. If not, you can give me a thumbs down. I know that means that it doesn't mean that you don't like me already, but that just curiosity. Just getting a quick poll of who's joined already. Excellent. Okay, very good. Plus, it'll give you a little feel for where the reactions are as we go through this from an interaction standpoint. I like to make this as interactive as possible. Perfect. Well, this is what I love to see. So if this is your first time with me, welcome. Be ready to enjoy. Hopefully you get something new out of this. If you're returning, welcome back. I always love to be able to spend some time and see what we can get out of this. So awesome, awesome. One quick thing that if you are new to this can make it a little bit helpful. Where in the bottom in the chat where it says when you're sending to somebody, if it says hosts and panelists, you can click on that drop down and change it to everyone. And when that happens, everybody gets to see the responses. You'll see me here, and I may read out some responses from people. I like to make this as engaging as possible. So welcome. That's my first quick 2-minute spiel. Let's dive in. So I want us to think about this right out the gate. What are your biggest roadblocks in managing time? What are your biggest roadblocks in managing time? I'm going to let everybody think about this. You can type your responses in the chat. Biggest roadblocks for managing time, what would they be? Too many competing priorities I'm seeing. The impromptus, the things that kind of find right up, the unexpected things that come into play. Excellent. Yeah, everybody making sure that everybody's here on time. Yeah, needing to sleep. I would agree with that too, right? Unplanned staff. So what happens sometimes with this, it can be unplanned staff for certain tasks that need to be done, but it also might be unplanned staff that are showing up to meetings that may not be there, that may not need to be there. Being the go-to I'm seeing as well. Multiple deadlines being the go-to because of seniority or because of experience or expertise. Unplanned fires. Sometimes it can feel like a level of laziness coming from another perspective, right? To where it's almost like, you know what? It feels like because nobody else is stepping up to the frame, I have to be the one that has to take it on. On the flip side, it may be that everybody else steps in too much and has to take on everything. Sometimes it may feel like the people above us may not have kind of their priorities in check, and so it kind of rolls downhill. In other cases, it may be that the people below don't have the support that we're looking for. Hopefully today, what we can get out of this is a couple tips, tricks, a few little things that may be able to help us alleviate a little bit of our pressure along the way. So, first and foremost, I want to talk a little bit about what is happening as a whole when we talk with the task management side of things or when impromptu things occur. One of the most important things that come into play is that managing time, if there feels like there's too much on our plates, it can start to push us into what we call reactive time management. And reactive time management means that things can be out of sight, they can be out of mind. It's not out in front of us. So, because it's not out in front of us, things will come out of the woodwork and come and get us, if you will. And so, what this causes us to do is that we start to react to the urgent requirements, the things that need to occur. But what really we have to block out time in our calendar for are the proactive measurements. These are the proactive measurements that also need to occur. These proactive measurements can be things that require us to build a better process, to put out the same fires. If we're putting out those same fires, what do we need to do to alleviate those fires from happening again? Maybe if it's something of, you know what, I'm the person that everybody has to go to. How do I start balancing in some strategic delegation? So, what we call this is the anticipation of potential needs and concerns that occur. And when we have this, what we typically try to call this so that our day doesn't run us, but that we can run our day, is we call this being Smokey the Bear with our options and solutions. I will tell us, thumbs up real quick. How many of us feel like we're constant firefighters? Like we're just putting out fires day in, day out. It's that this can be very, very, very common. And I will tell you, I'm seeing fire marshal. I love that, right? Somebody's like, I'm the deputy. I'm the one. Yeah, I'm the one. I got the hat. And I love that I'm hearing that in some cases there even may be a not usually. What ends up happening is there's going to be something at times to where we have to be the firefighter. There are times we have to be in those spaces where a fire is going to occur. As we heard, urgent items come in, unplanned higher priorities may come in. That's not always going to be the case where we'll just never be a firefighter again. What I want to challenge us with, and I'm going to give us all a couple of moments, and we're going to have a minute or two of silence, but I want us to think on this for a minute. I want you to think about the fires that are most repeatable, that you have to consistently put out over and over and over again. And I'm going to give you a few examples on my own. And the reason why I bring this up is because it's called being Smokey the Bear with your solutions. So I'm going to give you a few examples. I genuinely love our sales team. I will tell you this, there's no way that we would ever have a business if we didn't have our sales team. I want to give a shout out to them. I think they're amazing human beings. And they dig and they support and they're partner driven and they're just incredible. At the same time, we have almost 1,000 courses we offer across Educate 360. So, what do you think the likelihood is that they know all of our leadership offerings, which is still about 100 different offerings? How many of them out of the 60 plus people we have do we think they know every offering we have? What are the chances of that? Slim and none? Right. So it's not their fault. It's not, but at the same time, it is a challenge that becomes a repeatable fire over and over and over again. So what I have to do in my role is I have to really think about, okay, Jay, you can do one of two things. You could either A, continuously answer their questions day in, day out, over and over and over and over and over again, and never have time to innovate, to strategize, to work on the other projects. Or I might want to build something, create something, build something that makes it more easy, makes it a little bit more streamlined for them. And so I ask myself these questions. Anytime there's a fire to put out, I take an extra moment and I ask myself these questions. The first one is there anything I can do or build right now to eliminate this fire from happening again? So I'll give an example. Many a times salespeople will ask and come up and say, Jay, they want a client wants this. They want communication. And we go, wonderful. We have about 33 classes on communication. Great. So now I'm back in this role again. So what can we do? Well, what we've done to eliminate this fire that to happen again is we have sales solution specialists. We have people that know our line on a deeper level, that they come in as a line of support that can answer those deeper questions up front. So we tell the salespeople, bring in a solution specialist, they can help support the process as we go. We have now eliminated a lot of fires. When people are following that process, it's fantastic. Do you know how many questions I get of Jay? Do we have any questions on communication? Very few. That now frees up my time. Now, in a perfect world, everything could be eliminated, but it just isn't the case. So, what I typically do next is if I can't do one, I will go to 2A or 2B or not to be. That is the question. Sorry, that's my bad Shakespeare joke for the afternoon. But what I will look for is if I can't do number one, which is the largest, there's two other things I can do. One is glad a couple people like that one. There is mitigation or there is contingency planning. Mitigation is reducing or controlling the size of the fire. So I'm going to look for if I can't eliminate this fire from happening again, what can I do to control the size of the fire? And so what we have is to reduce or control the size of the fire is once we have the sales solution specialist involved, what we've built in is we have a final SME call with the client to say, hey, we just want to sure up. It takes 20 minutes. We just want to ensure we have the exact right solution for you. If this is what you're looking for, and this is the way we want to move forward, we can go. This allows us to streamline things. It allows us to make sure things are put in place. It reduces any sort of larger fires from happening. We built that in. On 2B, the thing is that there's always going to be situations where clients are just not going to know what they want. And I don't know if this is where I am. And I don't know if this is where I'm ready. Well, how do we extinguish that fire faster? Well, what we've done is build in touch bases saying, hey, I'd love for you to go back to who you need to go back to. I'd love to set up a follow up with you just to make sure of what information we have and how we can continue to help. These have reduced the amount of reactive things that we're getting pelted with on a daily basis and have turned things much more into how we can get ahead of certain problems. So here's where I want you to take a minute or two of thought. And yes, there may be a little bit of dead air time, but I like to make these interactive. I want you to think when you look at these questions, what are things you might be able to build, create? It could be a document, a workflow, a checklist, a wiki, something to be able to streamline things to make things easier. What are things that you might be able to build to free up your time a little bit? I'm going to give everybody about 60 seconds to think. Go. Love that I'm seeing some answers already starting to roll in. I like that. Now we're talking. Folks, this is what prioritization looks like. Do you notice you're not doing a task anymore, but you're actually building? You're building things. When you build something, it reduces the amount of tasks that can come in behind. I love what I'm seeing. I'm seeing flow charts, SOPs, decision trees, job aids, processes, reference guides, flow charts, RACI matrices, communication planning, FAQs, org charts, key players, roles, responsibilities, playbooks. I love a good playbook. For our new people, we build playbooks for those. Now we're talking, folks. So here is the challenge, and I know what many of us are going to think, and here comes Nostradamus, so brace yourself. But Jay, when are we ever going to have time to build that in? This is where we're going to go to the next piece. And I love, I'm seeing after hours. My goal is hopefully I can spare you a little bit of the after hours. Now, look, in the beginning, if we're trying to catch up or we're trying to get ahead, it may be a little bit in the beginning. But over time, it shouldn't be. And now, Sarah, I love what you just said here. We have to take notes during the fire. We have to be in the moment, in the present during the fire, and understand what was done so that we know what we need to do to fix it moving forward. The problem that we run into is we just jump from fire to fire to fire. So because of that, we hop back to the same fire. And I love that. That's an AAR. We need what is called after action reviews. We need to be able to look at something, reevaluate something, and build in a better process to get through it. 100%, Elizabeth. So here is an approach I like to take. Whenever I'm working on something, and I really try to take a clean, quick approach to the way that we work through things. I am a huge piece or fan of what is called chunk, block, and tackle. Chunk, block, and tackle, you don't have to solve the world's problems by blocking off 3 hours at once or blocking off 2 hours at once, or I need to block off my day to get all of this done. That's not how that works, right? We need to really think about what gets done and how we can be able to take pieces of time or pieces of information and be able to categorize that time for ourselves. So I'm going to show you something for just a moment, and you're going to see something. And I'm going to try to go. I'm not going to kind of show this week because this week was just all travel other than today. So, but I'm going to show you something that we have done that, look, we're not busy, and like I said, you'll find your free windows, but I'm going to show you a quick calendar look. How many of us color coordinate? Do we color coordinate? There's one color I want you to pay attention to, and that's my purple time. My purple time is my focus time. I try to block off time in advance, up front, before anybody else schedules time for me. And so when I do that, I really try to make sure that as I'm breaking down information or if I'm breaking large projects down, I bring in purple time first. Now, some people they may do 30-minute segments. I'm good with that. I'm supportive of that. But if you don't put that time out in front of yourself for next week, what happens is somebody else will take your time. And during that time, whether it's 15 minutes or whether it's 30 minutes, I'm going to tell you this. You have a right. And I don't know if I'm going to get applauses here, but last time this happened, there was applauses. You have a right to short-term DND. Does anybody know what DND stands for? Do not disturb. Now, can you be in do not disturb mode for 3 hours? Absolutely not. Dungeons and Dragons, Kelsey. No, you have the right to do not disturb mode. You have the right to do not disturb. It needs to be short term, but you do have the right to take 15 minutes to a 30-minute segment, to a 15 or a 30-minute window to chunk out that time in advance to block it. Now, if I block this, what I always like to say is look at your pebbles. What I mean is this project, and I'll give an example. If you're creating an entire job aid, if you're taking an entire job aid, you may not get it done in that 15 to 30-minute segment. But if it's going to take 2 hours and I blocked off 4 30-minute segments throughout the week, I could get it done that week. If it is an immovable object. So when I have projects that I need to get done myself, I will block out my time in advance. And with my purple time, I don't just put like focus time. I think that's a very critical mistake some people will make because then they don't know exactly what's in front of them. For mine is build scope of work for X, create plan for Y, strategize X for client, make it actionable. So that's the determination in your blocking, that you want to make sure that you're putting what it is you're doing in advance. You have to be specific about what you're tackling. And it doesn't take much time, but it's just putting in what I like to call this the self agenda. The self agenda is you putting aside that time to say, these are the 2 to 3 things I need to get done in this 15 to 30-minute window. The last thing is, and April, I love that, right, April? A lot of people, we try to be very intentional about our time. So we put focus time. And then what happens is we focus time, and then the first interruption that hits us, we're like, well, what was I going to work on? And then all of a sudden you get ding, and you're like, oh, somebody needs something. And then all of a sudden that time gets lost. So it is huge. I agree with you. Ethereal. I like that term. I like that term. So I always mark down what I call a self agenda. And it doesn't have to be in the body of your email, but or the body of your scope, but I will put it down in my purple time. So I'm like build scope of work for, build plan for, create presentation for, and just set it up to where I know what I need to work on in that time frame. When that time comes, I will tell you, it is do not disturb. I do not exist to the planet. I'm going to say something again, and I know this may hit everybody a little bit in the feel, so I apologize if this happens. I promise it's with kindness. You need to treat you with the same respect for time that you treat others. I'll say that again for the people in the back. You need to treat you with the same respect that you treat others in respect for time. Mic drop. And I say that because I want you to treat your whatever time, that focus time, what we call chunk block and tackle, CBT, treat that 30 minutes like it is an actual meeting with yourself. We give everybody the respect when we're in meetings and we're doing that, and we spend that time with them Spend that time with yourself to get it done. Chris, love the way that that's said. Doing that is a solid for future you. And that's the thing, Charisse, is and I'll tell you that I work through my lunch, but if that's also going to be my focus time, then leave me alone. And nothing personal. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but it is one of those things that if I am here for everybody else for 7 to 7.5 to 8 hours of my day, and I need 30 minutes to really get me taken care of, I'm going to get me taken care of. But if you do this, when I mean tackle, I don't mean this is go take a break. I mean, if you're going to tackle, I mean, make sure things are closed up. And what I mean by that is no LinkedIn's on, no, whether some of us might be on YouTube or, lock in, tune out, get what you need to. Some people will even set timers. If you don't like pressure against yourself, you don't have to do so. If you're a little more competitive, use a timer. You would be surprised as to what you get done. And yeah, exactly. It can turn into the Pomodoro clock that if you had 25 minutes and then you take a 5 minute break, you can do so. There's two schools of thought on that, Crystal, with the Pomodoro clock is where you go for 25 minutes and take a 5 minute break. If you like the pressure of going up against time, do it. If you don't, you still need to make sure that you remove distractions. No interruptions, no breaks, no mercy for that time window. And Catrice, I really appreciate seeing this, right? It's like it's acquisitions. I don't know how many of us are going through an acquisition, but we go through acquisitions ourselves. And what happens is that it feels like more and more and more and more things happen, which means that it's even more imperative that you block out that time for yourself. If it needs to be three 15-minute segments, great. Two 30-minute segments, great. But CBT needs to be a part of your vocabulary moving forward. So here's your homework for today. Ready for this? And yes, you have homework. I'm sorry to do this to you. Before the end of today, you're going to block, you're going to chunk and block segments of time on your calendar for next week. And you're going to put specific items that you're going to put time on that you didn't originally have time to do next week. Is that a deal, everybody? I love it. I love it. Excellent. Excellent. And Jennifer, you bring up a really good point too of, there is a bigger challenge sometimes on I wait on others before I can get started. And they spend most of their time doing what I need to be doing instead of what they need to do. So part of this is in the communication. Now, like I said, if you're sitting here thinking to yourself, and Jennifer, I'm going to get to that question in a moment. For those going like, this is exactly what I needed, if I may, you're getting about this much of a larger class that really dives into this, just so you know. So if you are interested, reach out. We have a class called Prioritizing Your Time Effectively. It's a 1 day course, but it is how to streamline your life. I'm going to tell you, it makes a big difference. So if you're interested, there you go. And appreciate that. Yeah, Mariella's just put that in the chat for us. It is a life changer. Okay. So, Jennifer, to your point, you talked about how can I focus on getting others to maybe focus on the things they need to be doing instead of doing what I'm doing, right? And Chris, to answer the question, yes, there is a copy of the recording for this afterward. Yes. Okay. So, what I try to teach people to do, and this is a good teaching tool, Jennifer, if you'd like to work on this with them, is I'm a huge fan of, some people will call this the Eisenhower matrix or the UI matrix, but I really try to help people identify what is their urgent and important items that they need to be working on. And I will have everybody identify that. So on my team, right, I have a team of, boy, I have 6 internal and a lot of dotted lines. But whenever we're trying to decide who is doing what in the roles, responsibilities, the tasks, what are we getting done and how do we need to get it done and who is responsible for what? We do a lot of UI matrices. And I have them define what is their urgent and important, what is important but not urgent, urgent but not important, and then we have the not important, not urgent. To start, I'm actually going to start down here in the bottom. If it is not urgent and not important, we need to delete it from our mind right out the gate. I don't mean it gets deleted from an inbox, but if it's junk mail or something like that, I'll give a good example of what's not urgent and not important. And I love HR, so I'm going to tell you, HR is my favorite people. Um, but if people are sending out our holiday schedule for like all of 2026, I don't need to know that anytime in the distant future until I'm ready to take vacation or I know when I'm going to be off. That's not urgent and not important right now. So what I'm going to do is delete it out of my mind. I have a reference folder I'm going to move it to. I'm going to move it to another space, but I'm going to get it out of my mind for the time being. The other 3 become really important. And this is one of the biggest headaches we talked about in reactive. Reactive lives in the urgent, but not necessarily important. Whereas proactive lives much more in the important, but not urgent. What we need to define are what are the areas that are most critical to the things we need to get done. So I'm going to spell this out and we're going to work through this, okay? So as we define what is most important to our roles, and I have other people define what is most important to their roles. Urgent and important. In my role, revenue generation is most important, right? I have a leadership business to run. I want to make sure that everybody is being helped, everybody's getting everything that they need. I have to make sure that that's occurring. Number 2, strategic initiatives, meaning like what's now. So this is for sales. Strategic initiatives for sales. What does sales need to know now in order to grow into what they're doing? That's a do. So anything that's in this pocket, these are what we call do. These are do. I need to step in, be there, do this. So if there's a strategic initiative sales working on, I got to dive in, do, step in, make happen, support, be a part of it. The other thing that's urgent and important is I need to make sure quality control of delivery is always on point. I need to make sure our facilitators are always at their best all the time. And if it's not, guess what? I got to dive in all the time. That's a do. Do's are urgent and they're important. But guess what? Do you know what we have a tendency to do as human beings? We have a tendency to put everything in this box. And I'm going to tell you a little secret. It isn't. It isn't. What we have to start deciding is what are the things that are urgent but not necessarily important overall. And I'll give a good example. How many of you see an email and you find the urge to to answer it right away? I have to answer this immediately. Ready? Answering emails. Some may be important. There may be the occasional one that is there. But answering emails for the most part is urgent, but it may not always be important. And do you know how I know they can wait? How many of you have taken a vacation in the last year or two? I'm sure that those emails waited. I'm sure they did. So answering emails. Um, if there are, what's a vacation, right? I know. Correct. And Hope, I love what you just said. She goes, it depends. I'm a gotta get it done. And that's where knowing yourself is really important. Hope, I'm with you. I'm what's called a GSDer. I'm a get stuff done person. If I see it, I want to answer it. But we got to be careful of individualized burnout. And so what we don't want to do is get caught in the monotony when there's greater things that need to be taken care of. That's the only caveat we got to be careful of. So I love where you're going with this. Urgent, but not important. This is also, brace yourself, fires that others can handle. For example, Jay, I need these courses and we need to decide which courses we're going to deliver for who. You know what? I could take that myself. Or I could put trust in others that I know can get it done. When we talk about these things, what we have to do, folks, is we have to delegate. We have to pull an Elsa and we have to let it go. And you know who else is? That's from Frozen. Other things could include there's other challenges that can come in, but in our case, and I'll say in our business, one thing that's urgent but not important is sales questions. And when I mean sales questions, there's a difference between, hey, there's a strategic initiative, my client's ready to move forward, versus, hey, I have some impromptu sales questions I need some information on. Those can wait. They may seem urgent, but they're not at the time. This can be delegated. The reason why we don't want to put everything in this top box is because what we neglect is what goes in this top right box. This is where research goes. So, where our research, our content development is, we're talking things like longer AI initiatives that we're strategizing in. We're talking about additional mergers, if we're like partnerships or merge. These are additional things that we're getting into that I need to be ahead of the curve on. These could be conferences that I need to prepare for or events. Here's the challenge. What we have a tendency to do is we will ignore this box. And when we ignore this box, then everything pours up into here. When we put everything into that, then everything becomes this box. How many of you are starting to see it now? If we ignore this box and we plug everything here, everything becomes urgent and important. So this is where we go to defer. This is why we put this on our calendar. This is why we block out. This is where I'm going to put that CBT back. Chunk, block, and tackle becomes important. I got a question from Hope, and Hope, I don't know if you were in the beginning of this, but there is a if you change that from hosts and panelists to everyone, Hope just asked an amazing question. She said, "How do you feel about follow-up flags with dates under custom settings?" I am a fan of flags, of flagging things. I run what's called an inbox zero. So I'll just show you like what my email may look like. And I'll clear out annotations real quick. You can see right now that I only have at the moment 5 emails in there. It's really like 9, but I have 9 emails in my inbox. I promise you I don't have 9. It's just these are the 9 tasks or projects that I am still working on over a period of time that I know need to get done over a longer stretch. So, because of this, these serve as my projects. And yes, I do flag these. So, I know that when we're here, I know that this one I'm doing today, even though I needed to get it done Wednesday. I know that I still had a little time on this, but these two, these need to be done by Monday. So I'm putting those up on the next roster. So I do run it as a rotation, but I run what's called inbox zero, meaning that once I'm done with my task project approach, I've handled something, it goes to a folder on the left side. I organize it by department, then team member. So I promise you, I don't have 9 emails. If I go to my sent items, I have 25,000. So that's where it is. Does that make sense to everybody on how we start getting ahead of ourselves? And Chris, love the extra suggestion. Followupthen.com. Check that out too. I love good open sourcing. But yes, the answer to Hope's question of how do I feel about follow up flags, dates, custom settings, I am a fan of it. At the same time, what I will say is I want you to find your system. I want you to find your system. Does that make sense to everybody? So with inbox zero may not be that you're clearing out your entire inbox, but it may be that everything stays unread until it's handled. Or there may be another system where you use rules or folders. There may be flagging and tasks. Whatever system you're going to use, make sure that's a system you want to use. Okay. So, with that said, that takes us to the end of today. That brings us to the Q&A part of this. I'm going to open up the floor to any additional questions you have, concerns. We are rated about the 45-minute marker. Let's open up the floor, and I'm going to pass the baton over to Mariella.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. I went ahead and threw in a couple of links that our amazing audience can follow up on if they have any additional questions or want to learn a little bit more about prioritizing your time effectively. The link is in there. And I wanted to also throw in the link for our next leadership session, cultivating trust between leaders and followers. So if you want a little bit more about leadership, just wanted to throw in all of the amazing resources we have here. Educate 360. And I know we did have a question earlier in the session from Jennifer. My bigger challenge is that I have to wait on others to get their work done before I can get started. They spend most of their time doing what I need to be doing instead of what they need to do. I think that's actually just a really great piece of feedback, and I think it's in a really good reminder on, yeah,
Yeah. And Mariella, to that, that's where with Jennifer, the biggest thing that I would stress to Jennifer, and I think that Jennifer probably spends, she mentioned she creates job aids and creates things like that. I think for something of that nature that's really critical, have them run through their own urgent and important matrix and see how many things overlap. See how many things that they are running into that may actually not be their own fire. You may end up
absolutely.
surprised on it.
Yeah, the matrix is really, really important. Urgent and important. Alrighty. Well, we have a couple people dropping in thank yous. So yeah, if you have any last minute questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. But I did want to take a second to remind everyone that if they w didn't attend the entire session or they want to go and take a peek back at the recording, we'll be following up with a link to the recording in an email at the end of the webinar. And Jennifer also mentioned we've actually built these matrices and task lists. They just want to run the whole program themselves.
Yeah, and sometimes that's going to be a different challenge than time management. That may be a more of a interdepartmental collaboration, a little bit more interdepartmental awareness. We do have other courses in that case, like communicating across your org, so that there's a little bit more awareness. There's business acumen, so that they can understand that, hey, it's not just about you. There's a larger department in a business that other departments need to be in charge of different roles and responsibilities. So yeah, sometimes it's not just a project, or it's not just a time management concern. So this is huge.
Yeah, it starts with time management, right? It
Yeah.
starts with the little things and then it snowballs. But it is amazing to be self-aware about all of these specific intricacies in an organization. So absolutely. Alrighty. Well, we got a lot of thank yous, and I believe that answered all of the questions that they threw in, some feedback. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We're getting a lot of really fantastic pieces of feedback. So thanks everyone. At the very end of the webinar, there will be a little pop-up for a survey if you want Jay to cover any specific issues or anything along those lines. Please let us know. We would love to hear what we can cover in the future. And yeah, just thank you all so much for your fantastic engagement today. And of course, thank you so much, Dr. J.
Thank you, Mariella. Take care, everybody, and have a great weekend.
Alrighty, we'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now, everyone.